Today's seminar also being streamed the official YouTube of Ministry of Cooperatives and Republic of Indonesia. So if you missed the moment of the seminar as of today, you may rewatch the video on the YouTube of Kemenko. Ladies and gentlemen, starting the agenda today, we would like to sing the national anthem of Indonesia Raya. Ladies and gentlemen, you are please to rise. Expansion and pursuit of Cooperatives and Service Republic of Indonesia. Dixie, the floor is yours.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, Bapak Nah, morning to you too, Charles, dan Bapak Ibu sekalian beserta selamat pagi. Pertama-tama saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada Sipo yang sudah mendampingi Kementerian Koperasi dan UKM dalam melaksanakan pengembangan dari Kementerian kami dengan bentuk pasar UMKM kami ke pasar Swiss dan Eropa. Pagi hari ini Bapak Ibu dan pelaku usaha, saya harapkan dapat memanfaatkan kesempatan ini di mana konsultan Sipo, Mr. Charles, akan memberikan informasi yang sangat berharga kepada Bapak dan Ibu bagaimana untuk dapat menembus pasar Swiss dan Eropa. Karena pasar Swiss merupakan pasar yang sangat potensial untuk produk-produk organik, di mana terdapat peningkatan permintaan ekspor. Dan kemudian Swiss juga bisa menjadi pintu kita untuk memasuki pasar Eropa. Bapak dan Ibu nanti akan mendengarkan market intelligence dan juga mapping dari konsultan Sipo yang akan kita harapkan dapat membantu Bapak dan Ibu yang bergerak di sektor bisa mendapatkan informasi yang berharga. Sehingga Bapak dan Ibu tahu, kalau Bapak dan Ibu ingin masuk pasar Eropa atau Swiss, apa-apa saja yang harus disiapkan, apa-apa saja produk-produk yang diterima oleh pasar Swiss dan Eropa. Dan nanti Bapak dan Ibu juga saya harapkan bisa memanfaatkan kesempatan ini bertanya langsung. Apa yang kami perlu lakukan dalam keadaan produk kami seperti apa? Dan bagaimana kami bisa mendapatkan fasilitas untuk memenuhi persyaratan yang ditetapkan oleh baik Swiss maupun Uni Eropa. Nanti juga Bapak dan Ibu bukan hanya pada kesempatan kali ini saja bisa mendapatkan dukungan kami, tapi setelah acara seminar ini berakhir juga ada tim kami dan tim SIPO yang siap membantu Bapak dan Ibu memenuhi requirement atau persyaratan dari pasar dan pasar Uni Eropa. Nah, mungkin nanti saya tidak bisa mendampingi sampai acara ini berakhir karena saya masih punya agenda yang lain, tapi Bapak dan Ibu baik dari SIPO maupun dari tim kami Kementerian Koperasi akan tetap ada di sini. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Sutrisna, Bapak Aris, dan SIPO secara keseluruhan dan kepada teman-teman yang sudah mengatur agar acara ini dapat terlaksana dengan baik. Dan terima kasih juga kepada Charles yang sudah mempersiapkan bahan untuk pertemuan pagi hari ini. Terima kasih banyak. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Well, thank you for Fixie for very insightful remarks at this moment. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we also would like to listen to the remarks and from SIPO country representative, which has been joining us this morning, Bapak Arif Darujo. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Selamat pagi Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Sebelumnya saya ucapkan terima kasih banyak kepada dan tim dari Pasar Perluasan Pasar Kerjasama yang telah mendukung acara ini dan telah baik, dan juga mendukung acara yang sudah kami lakukan pada saat Desember 2022 kita melakukan yang namanya buyer mapping. Buyer mapping ini kenapa kita lakukan bersama-sama dengan tim dari Kemenkop? Karena kita melihat bahwa kita harus mengetahui kondisi buyer dan kondisi supplier. Jadi kita harus mengetahui buyer landscape dan supplier landscape. Apa saja yang menjadi market trend dari pasar-pasar di Eropa, terutama di Switzerland, kemudian di Prancis, kemudian di Netherlands, kemudian di Spanyol, dan di negara-negara Eropa lainnya. Kami dengan tim dari Kemenkop itu kita mengunjungi 3 negara dan bertemu dengan kurang lebih 10 buyer, dan kami mendapatkan banyak sekali masukan, insight dari para buyer ini mengenai apa yang mereka butuhkan, barang-barang dari natural ingredient, dan juga kemudian persyaratannya apa saja untuk bisa masuk ke pasar Eropa. Dan mungkin nanti konsultan kami, Bapak Charles Modret, itu akan memberikan laporannya dari hasil kita melakukan buyer mapping, yang mana juga alhamdulillah dari hasil buyer mapping ini sudah ada langsung 2 buyer yang akan langsung datang ke Indonesia dan sudah mengirimkan inquiry melalui tim dari Kemenkop, dari tim yang dipimpin oleh Ibu Fiksi. Dan rencananya juga kami minggu depan itu akan melakukan yang namanya company assessment. Kita akan mengunjungi beberapa perusahaan yang diharapkan nanti bisa memenuhi produk-produk yang diminta oleh buyer-buyer dari Eropa. untuk menyingkat waktu, saya akan berikan kembali ke MC. Semoga acara ini bisa menjadi berguna. Seperti tadi Ibu Fiksi juga sebutkan, jangan ragu-ragu untuk bertanya. Di sini ada translation juga, jadi bisa bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia maupun bisa langsung dalam bahasa Inggris. Gunakan sebaik-baiknya event ini untuk mendapatkan informasi yang dibutuhkan oleh teman-teman UKM. Baik, terima kasih banyak. Saya kembalikan kepada MC.
Well, thank you Pak Aris Darujo for your remarks. As on Pak Aris' remarks, it has been explained that then Mr. Charles would actually explaining to all of you, particularly to the SMEs of Indonesia, regarding to the potential transactions that you may have as of the information from buyer and the requirement that would like to be explained by Mr. Charles as the SIPO expert. Thanks once again, Pak Aris Darujo, for your remarks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to moving on into the main agenda where Mr. Charles Moderate, as the SIPO expert, would like to share you the market information which has been collected from the buyer himself, as well as the requirement which is required by the SMEs if you want to penetrate the market of European and Swiss, in particular for natural ingredient product. I'd like to hand the mic to Mr. Charles.
Good morning. It's a pleasure for me to be with all of you. First of all, do you hear me? Because I had a lot of, it was difficult for me to hear you. So I just want to be sure. I just want to be sure that on your side you can hear me.
Your voice is very clear, sir. That's good.
It's a crystal clear, sir. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So it's a pleasure. As I was introduced, my name is Charles Mordret. I work as an external consultant for SIPO as an expert for natural ingredients and processed food. My main work is to follow the European market and to help the organizations to conduct different missions, different events to be in contact with the market. And also I do a lot of market intelligence. As I will show you a presentation, and I will explain to you first in which context this presentation is done, in which context this buyer mapping assignment was performed. So just let me try to share my screen now, and I will share you a presentation. So is it okay? Can you see? Okay. First of all, as it was said, just to situate a bit the presentation that we do today, in which context it was done. It started a few months ago in last autumn. We decided to do a kind of a buyer mapping to understand a bit what was the European market for the products exported by Indonesia, to understand a bit who were the main actors, how the market was structured, what was the main context in terms of regulations, in terms of requirement, trends, etc. And also to learn about the buyer experience with the work with Indonesia and their main requirements, and help with the idea of organizing in the future some trade activities like buyer mission, participation at trade fairs, etc. So we, as Aris said previously, we did a buyer mission. We did a mission to France, Netherlands last December in the context of the food ingredients trade fair. So we met live some importers. We visited them at their premises. We had long and very productive talks with them, and we got their feedback, etc. Then after this visit, on my side, I continued to contact and talk with different European importers, and I conducted some interviews, open interviews, in fact, with the the goal to learn about, what was their perception of Indonesia, their needs of Indonesian products, and their main requirements. And finally, recently there was another trade fair. Just before I present this report, I used also to validate some information I collected at the Biofact trade fair, very important for organic products. So what I do now today is I present then some findings. I adapted, so I did, this presentation is done to present to you now. There will be there is a document that I will send to my SIPO partner after with some more details about, for example, list of companies, a database of importers of Indonesian products in Europe, etc., that I cannot, for obvious reasons, show here in the presentation. But let me just introduce what are the main objectives is to, as I said, to provide an insight into the market trends and demand for natural ingredients from Indonesia. So the main products that were selected, I just had a look at the people who were here in the meeting. I saw that there are a lot of different natural ingredient products, etc. You just have to just bear in mind that this study, we could not work on all the ingredients. We focused particularly on spices, in particular nutmeg, mace, pepper, cassia, and also coconut sugar, all products that are star products from Indonesia. And then the objective is to identify potential buyers and know their requirement. So how will we do it in this short presentation today? I will give, first of all, some basic information about the market, particularly post-COVID, so where we are in terms of a EU market. Then some trends and market drivers for the food sector that affect the natural ingredients, and some trends and drivers for spices and some coconut. Then I will jump on the issue of sustainability, which will be the center of my talk today. And I will talk about how it affects so what does it mean in terms of EU regulations? What are the new regulations that we have, and what are the different implications for buyers and how they comply, and about market requirements, etc. Then I will present some things that we learned from the discussions with the buyers about some issues of import from Indonesia, advantages perceived of products from Indonesia, the main quality controls that are performed, that are done by the buyers, documentations demanded by them, etc. And so I will just after give a profile of the typical EU spice importers and some tips for you to approach the buyers. So I hope I'll have time to talk about all this in the short time that we have today. So just to situate ourselves in the moment where we are, just going out of the COVID, we are just recovering from a very strange and special time that affected a lot the EU imports, and also I know the exports from Indonesia. And we recovered what was lost during the COVID time. So I wanted to show some statistics provided by the European Commission about the EU agri-food imports. So all the products. So what we see about the numbers that are given there, that 2022 was a strong recovery if we compare to 2021 and 20. We saw a 35% increase of the imports in the period from January to October, compared with the same period the year before. And what I want to show you here is we have the numbers by product categories. So it's very interesting that to see that among the best or the strongest recovery was for the coffee, tea, cocoa, and spices, all ingredients very much exported by Indonesia, for which Indonesia is an important supplier. So so all these products just benefited a lot from the period of the COVID, and the recovery was very strong. So 33% that we see. First number. And then if we have to look at the trade balance for agri-food product, one very important thing to say here is that the EU trade balance globally in general is positive. So it means that Europe exports more than it imports. It's true for, as a whole, for all products, but for certain product groups, for obvious reasons, Europe is a net importer. For example, spices that are 95% for 95% sourced outside of Europe, and it's true for fruit, nuts, and all these products like that. And you can see in the graph below some numbers that support this. Also, another reason why Europe is a very strong importer. Also, it's the market is very curious. It's diverse, and the European consumers are very much. They are interested in all different kind of products, and the market is very innovative, and it's fueled by innovations. So these are some numbers that explain this factor. What were the top suppliers? We see that Indonesia is in the top 15. Before the COVID, it was in 7th position. Now it's in the 9th position. But still very much important, of course. We see that in October 22, we see a growth of 22% compared with the previous year. So it's very important. And it's mainly, all the product groups that benefited a lot from this growth are the one that I mentioned before: spices, cocoa, coffee, and tea. So what is the bottom line? What was positive in the post-COVID context for Indonesia? It was the reopening of the borders and the end of lockdowns, obviously. And also, very important thing, the transportation costs, the cost of logistics decreased, and there was a higher availability of freight. So this was an important factor for the recovery. And also, very, very much higher demand for a lot of different functional ingredients since the COVID. And it was very important for spices and all the sugar replacements, like coconut sugar, for example. So I will talk about that in the next slides. What is negative, though? During the COVID, the regulatory environment, for which I will talk about that after, changed a lot, and there was a very important evolution. It's much stricter in terms of all regulations regarding health and food safety, for example, and it caused some problems and some hurdles for many exporters from Indonesia. Also, all the new regulations regarding sustainability also that has a negative impact and effect on some exports. So what are the main, just to synthesize, I will do that fast, but what are the main trends that we see in the EU food sector? It's very important for you to know that and to follow this as exporters. What happens in the EU market? For example, the first thing, sustainability is a new thing. It's very important, and everybody talks about that in all trade fairs. It was true for food ingredients, SIAL, and all trade fairs. We see that everybody talk about this. All the actors of the industry need to deal with that. It's a general concern. And before, sustainability was mainly regarding environment. Now it's a lot of different things. It has a lot of different dimensions. It's not only not to pollute, it's also lower carbon emissions, protection of biodiversity, reduction of food waste, etc. It has a lot of implications also. It has ethical and social components. That was not necessarily true a few years ago. We were not talking about that. Another thing is concern for food safety. It goes together, but it's also something by itself. You know, there is a stronger, as I would say, the regulations are much stricter, and the list of prohibited substances and additives in the European Union is always increasing. The level of maximum residue levels, for example, are getting lower. It's a very important context also. There are a lot more controls and requests for traceability. Certifications also become very important. We cannot barely be present in the European market without any certification. And GMP, which are it's the good manufacturing practice, particularly for ingredients for cosmetic sector. Another very important thing that has a very big impact is the continued growth of private labels. Somebody has its microphone. If it was possible for you to just disconnect the microphone, it would be great. Also, the health concerns, all the healthy food, everything that is free from sugar, free from salt, free from allergen. It's also very important, and it has a very positive impact for the ingredients exported by Indonesia. Clean label, it means that the people are more and more suspicious about everything that is industrial, transformed, synthetic, and the people are looking for real ingredients, whole ingredients. It's also very positive, this trend for Indonesia. Big important growth for functional foods, including spices. Functional food, what is it? You may know that. All foods that have a function, for example, that are good for immunitary system, that are good for gut health, etc. There is a big boost, big growth in the sales of these products. All superfoods, etc. Plant-based elements and protein substitutes, a market that will reach in a few years, according to UBS Bank, $85 billion for plant-based food. It's also very important. All vegan, for example, it has a big impact on the coconut derivative. Everything that replaces milk, for example, it has also a very big demand. All the nuts, all dry fruits, for example, it is very much in demand. Another thing, very important, that we had the opportunity to test during our visit to Netherlands last December. The demand for exotic food and ingredients is booming. It boomed even more during COVID. So the people were just in lockdown, isolated in their house. So eating for them was a way to travel. So we have some numbers here. Asian food and spicy food are at the top of the interests. So it's very beneficial for Indonesian exports. Another thing, organic is not anymore niche, it's everywhere. And it has, particularly for spices, for example, and for coconuts exported by Indonesia. So some trends for the food industry. I will just, these are general trends concerning the industry. I will go back to this. And it was part of the things that we verified in the interviews with the buyers. But just to synthesize a bit, there are a lot of new trends for digitalization, all tools that allow to increase efficiency. So, for example, the blockchain, everything that allow for traceability, for example. These are new important trends. But high freight cost, it's a bit lower now, but it's also a big issue. So the industry is looking for ways to reduce the costs and to increase availability. So there are a lot of different strategies. We can talk about that if you wish later. Buyers want to secure their supply. They want to diversify and divide their sourcing. So we see that a lot in different interviews. I had the information that some importers to minimize the risks, for example, with working with one single origin, they will try to have two origins for their product. So, for example, they may want to import coconut sugar from Indonesia, but also from Sri Lanka, for example. So this is a strategy to reduce the risks. Also, buyers look to source more directly from the producers. So it's really not the good context for the middleman. So the industry is more and more suspicious of the middleman, unless the middleman brings something very important: more traceability, more security, more tests, more quality controls. But if they don't bring any value, the market tend to eliminate these intermediaries. Packaging and processing done outside of the EU, it's also a big trend because of the costs. European salaries are high, so if technologies, if safety is good outside of EU, the processing and packaging can be done outside. But the main prerequisites are food safety and security. So I don't know if I'm clear on this, but if the European importer can do the processing outside of Europe, they will do it, but it needs to be secure. So they will do it with certified operators. Buyers ready to engage more deeply with their suppliers. It's also a very important thing, particularly for sustainability. But in exchange, they ask for commitment and engagement. So it's a trade-off. Buyers expect suppliers to know and commit to regulations and good manufacturing practices. They request honesty, transparency, accessibility, and reputation and track record play an important role. I will go back to these things. It was just to synthesize what we see in the food industry. Okay, as I said, we concentrated on spices. So what are the main market drivers for spices? The growth is mainly fueled by health properties. It's an important factor. World and exotic cuisines, and all new applications in cosmetic and health sector. You always have to keep in mind that for EU market, which is huge and highly competitive, and I will say saturated a bit, innovation is very important, and marketing stories is also important. So the actors place products on the market with marketing stories, innovation. So spices offer opportunity, and not only spices, other ingredients. Everything that is new, everything that is authentic, is demanded by the market, by the actors, because they can differentiate themselves. So as I said, the functional properties, immunity boosting, gut health, etc. Another thing, which is very important for spices, the importers are constantly looking for new suppliers. This is important to understand. There is a global scarcity of high quality and sustainably produced spices that comply with the requirement and European legislation. It's the same thing for coconut. So even if the production is very high, the production that comply with European legislation is not enough. So the importers are looking always for new suppliers. This is an important thing. The important volumes are still mainly for unprocessed spices, but as I said, increasingly, it's done outside of Europe. Most of the processes, it depends on the spices, but are performed in Europe. And if the processors of developing countries or countries like Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, etc., compete with the processors in Europe, this is also important. The trends go to tighter requirements, increased certification, reduction of pesticides, contaminants, and allergens, and more controls, phytosanitary. It's an important challenge. And most farmers lack the knowledge, expertise, or resources to invest in technologies and certifications. So a few facts. You probably know all of this. It's not the purpose of my presentation is not to talk, to just give data, but just to situate ourselves also. Europe is 28% of the global import of spices, the second market after Asia, but the average price is twice as high as Asia. So it's a high value market, as I will say. 95% of the spices are imported from developing countries. It represents approximately 1.8 billion euro market, which is very high. The industry, the EU food and beverage industry, represents a turnover of 1.1 trillion euro. This is the largest food market in the world. What are the main hubs for spices imports? The main is Hamburg, Rotterdam, Algeciras in Spain, Antwerp in Belgium, and Marseille. So these are the main ports. Entrance doors, I will say, of the European market. One very important thing to know, you probably already know it, Europe is an integrated market. So the 27 countries that are part of the European Union, it's an open market. So the rules are the same for all these markets. Every country has has some rules, but the most important rules are the one of the European Union. So it makes that once a product enters by a custom in Rotterdam, for example, it enters Europe. So it can circulate, the products can circulate freely. So this is important to understand. It doesn't make sense in Europe too much to distinguish the market by countries. Another important thing is the global organic market for spices. It's constantly growing. It's true that because of the inflation and high prices, the organic market decreased a bit. Not decreased, but stagnated in 2022. But if we look on the long term, organic is constantly growing. And for certain product categories, and many products exported by Indonesia, organic is very important and is the place, is the very important. What are the main markets in Europe? Germany, the first importer, 21% of the imports, and 78% are sourced in developing countries. So the rest are sourced from other EU countries from re-exports. Netherlands is the second market, a small country, but main entrance for a lot of products, and particularly for spices. So 14% of the EU. And then France, which is the main trading hub for vanilla, UK for spices from India in particular, Spain for capsicum, saffron, with a lot of imports from South America, etc., and local production also. What are the main suppliers of EU? India, the first, then Vietnam, and I listed there the products. Of course, they export other products, but the products that they are more strong for. China, Indonesia, you know, Indonesia is exports 85% of the nutmeg, maize, cassia, cloves. Indonesia is also the first world exporter of cloves, and Sri Lanka. So talking about coconut products, which was also in focus for what we did, the demand is booming in high revenue markets for all the byproducts. So traditionally, coconut oil was very important, but in the last years, all byproducts increased a lot. So it compensated for the decrease in copra, for example. And it's fueled also by the vegetarian diets, plant-based, and also by the will to replace all the milk, etc. Also because it's exotic and non-traditional. We have a lot of different new applications and new product launches for coconut byproducts. So as examples, virgin coconut oil, which is very important for the all new diets, there are a lot of diets using coconut oil, for example, coconut milk, milk butter, coconut water. It's also trendy. Coconut sugar as a replacement for white sugar, very important. It's huge, and we see that regularly we see new ingredient importers just going into coconut sugar. So it's very important. Desiccated coconut also. And I will remind that Indonesia is the first world exporter of coconut sugar. Coconut ingredients are used as a sugar replacement, as I said. But there is a big challenge, stable supply and sustainability. It's a big challenge for the industry. So it's so the leaders of the future will be the ones that take this change for sustainability seriously. Yeah. Okay. I just I announced that I will talk about sustainability. This is the main thing that we talk about, that the importers talk about. So this will be the main thing that I talk about also. You know, the UN Sustainable Goals. So there are 17 goals that were identified or established or just promoted by the United Nations. Among these goals, we talk about reducing poverty and hunger, access to resources, promote equality, etc., etc. And the goals have a number. And all the actors, the importers in Europe, they know the numbers for which they correspond. So this is the UN Sustainable Goals are all the large organizations, SIPO included, for example, and a lot of different association, European Spice Association, for example, etc., use these goals as reference. So I strongly suggest you to learn more about that. And in Europe, to be sure, all the many government agencies and everything have these goals as guidelines. And as I said, it's the case for SIPO, the organization I work with. Yeah, the EU also have very, very ambitious objectives. It's mainly known the EU. We talk about the EU Green Deal, and in which we have the farm to fork strategy. So we talk about a lot of things. It means a lot of things, but it's a set of new laws, regulations with very ambitious objectives. For example, here we have targets for 2030, the reduction 50% of pesticides. We plan to increase the organic farming by 25%, etc. So we want to influence everything, all the chain. Even we want also to have an influence in the sourcing countries, the supplying countries. So there is a set of legislative framework that is adopted by the European Parliament, that is voted by the European Parliament and adopted by the Commission. And we had a lot in 2022 that have a big impact for you, and that have a big impact first for the EU importers, but also for you, because we all need to adapt. To give an example, we talked a lot about the new legislation on mandatory due diligence. It starts with the big companies importing large volumes, but it's slowly the application is going wider, and the smaller companies, the smaller importers, the smaller actors will be affected also in a certain delay. But yeah, due diligence, what does it mean? It means that it's mandatory for all European companies to assess the conditions of the workers' conditions, the social conditions, the environmental conditions in all their supply chain. So it's mandatory. So if the EU importers ask you questions about salaries of workers, about etc., it's because they are obliged to do so. First thing. There was also a new organic regulation that entered into force in 2022, beginning of last year, that changed slightly the rules for different things. For example, it's easier for cooperatives and small and associations to certify as group, but we need to certify a lot of new things that we didn't have to certify before, like, for example, additives and colorants, etc. So it's a bit complex, but it's not that complex. If you are already certified organic, you probably already know about that. A very important law that was recently voted, and it is very important for Indonesia. I know that you had a lot of there were some government missions to Europe. You were negotiating for the issue of palm oil, for example, but the deforestation law entered into force in December 2022. It will be forbidden to import, to sell, to market products that are the result, or that comes from a deforested area, deforested after 2020. So, and it will be mandatory to prove that the place where that it doesn't come from a deforestation zone. So using, for example, satellite photographs and etc. So the importers will have to check for every product that they buy that it doesn't come from deforestation land. So it's very important. The Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, it's also a new thing. The company will be obliged to do some reporting of the impact of their activities, social and environmental impact. So it will give a lot of jobs to the audited companies, but they will be obliged to do that, to report on this. So they will need for sure help from their suppliers. Food safety, so increased list of prohibited substances, pesticides, etc. So I don't want to, it's a bit complicated, but it does, as you can see, as you can think, a huge impact on you. So the responsibility, the way that the laws are done in Europe, and it started with the general food law, the way that the laws are done in Europe, it places all the responsibility on the shoulders of the actors, the companies. And in that case, in our case, it's placed on the shoulders of the buyers, the importers. So they are obliged to perform comprehensive, so it means wide risk assessment, to be sure that their products are responsibly sourced, traceable, and have didn't contribute to a negative social, environmental, or ethical impact. So this is very important. And if they don't comply, the implications the impacts are major, legally, financially, and in terms of reputation. So the buyers that you meet, European buyers that you meet, they request consequently full traceability, complete transparency, and commitment. So these are the three words that are very important for you to understand. These are necessary. Traceability is to know everybody in their supply chain. A huge company like Verstegen, for example, spice importer, they want to know everybody implicated in their supply chain till they have their objective for 2035. So these are the Sustainable Spice Initiative objectives, but they will probably try to achieve that before 2035. Transparency, it means that, full transparency on the ingredients that are used, on the processes, on the origin of the plants, etc. Even on the prices, because also the social aspect is very important. So we need to change our minding. We cannot work in a different, everybody works on his side, keeping his prices secret. I don't want that my client know the real price I pay. So this mentality is very old. doesn't apply anymore. And the buyers are ready to pay a premium for transparency. This is important. So how do they comply with the new regulations? According this was based for the desk research that I did, but also a lot from the interviews that we conducted. So how do they do to follow the regulations? So first of all, the easiest way for the market will be to work with certified suppliers by third-party organizations like Fairtrade or Rainforest Alliance, which are the most important. Why certifications? Because it gives an insurance. It gives an assurance that, yeah, it's an easy way, as I would say, because they are third-party organizations that assess that everything was, done correctly. So it's a protection for the buyers, the importers. So this is why they ask certifications. Also, building long-term relationships. So now they don't want to work from time to time. Well, it depends. It depends. Still, the price is very important in the market. For many small importers, some importers I talk with, for example, they look for 300 kilos of some product. So we don't talk there about the long term. But the idea for the big ones, all the companies that are member of Sustainable Spice Initiative, for example, they want to build long-term relationship. And they know that to do that, they know that with all these requirements, they need to support the small farmers. Also, they invest in train in sustainable agriculture, etc. They also, how do they do to comply with the new regulations? For example, they will use a lot of tools, for monitoring and reporting. So, of course, they will try to. It's not their job, for example. It's not their job to report and to monitor. Their job is to sell their products. So it's, everybody we talk to in Europe, for them, all these things are very complicated. And everybody is tired of this. Everybody wants no more regulations, but it's the case. It's like that. So they need to deal with that. So they will try to use easiest tool and to work with efficiency. So as I said, certification is an easy way, but also they will try to build a process for sourcing. So, for example, they will ask the new suppliers to, I will talk about that later, but free sustainability assessment, for example. So, and there are some new tools that will be used to make the things easier in terms of monitoring and reporting. Okay, I will try to go a bit faster. The time is running, but everybody who exports already to Europe know this pyramid. There are three types of requirements on the market. The ones that are requested by law, that we have no choice. This is the law. And these, we call them the mandatory requirement. And it's a must, as you see in the pyramid. So we talk about food safety, labeling, food contamination, etc. So we have no choice. We need to do that. So there are the laws that are, I didn't include it in the presentation, but this is the general food law, for example, the general EU food law. So it talks about a lot of things. The labeling law, the information to consumers. Well, these are the mandatory things that everybody needs to respect. Then there are the common requirements. So they are not mandatory, but they are commonly requested by the actors, the importers. So the food safety certification, we consider that a common requirement. So for example, I will show a bit later, but ASAP, HACCP, ISO, FSSC 22000, IFS BRC, these are food safety certifications. It's not mandatory. If you respect the law in Europe, you can export your product without certification. But these common certifications makes the thing easier and more secure for main importers. So this is why they will request it. There is one segment, the ethnic segment, or the ethnic product. There are some companies that import Indonesian brands because it's popular in their market. So of course, for this, they will import the brand, and very often it's pre-packaged. So they will not ask for these common certifications. They will satisfy the mandatory law, what is a must, but they will not ask for more. But if you want to work with food processors, packers, distributors of ingredients, you will need to go for more than what is mandatory. And then you have the voluntary or niche. The niche, for example, the best example is organic. It's not obligatory. It's not. You don't have to export organic. But if you want to access certain segments, then you need to have some niche certification. Now there is a trend. Before, Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade, etc., was very much a niche. Now, with sustainability, it's almost a must. So this is important. So, as I said, certifications, labels, maybe for you it's more expensive, but it increases trust. It makes things easier. So it's important. We really need to understand, depending of your sector, but if you are in the spice sector, if you are in the coconut sector, and mainly the raw ingredients, you really need to understand that a shift from quantity to quality is needed to keep your access to Europe. A shift from quantity to quality. This is very important. So in terms of food safety certifications, the most popular in Europe are the ones that we call GFSI, Global Food Safety Initiative. This is a family of certifications. So from the simple to the more complicated, I listed them here. HACCP, this is a more basic one. HACCP is a kind of process. This is a procedure of control to assess the risk. So this is the most basic one. So practically, everybody who exports already know that here. Most of the importers in Europe ask minimum HACCP. And then you go up, ISO 22000, FSSC 22000. FSSC 22000, this is the basic. This is the one that is mainly requested by the ingredient importers, processed ingredient importers, or dry fruits, for example, nuts, bulk ingredients processed that you export to Europe. If you want to sell to a packer, manufacturer, so basically most of them will ask for FSSC 22000. And then if you want to go closer to the supermarkets and to the retail, the organized distribution, you will have to go for BRC IFS. And if you want to do private label, which is approximately 40% of the market, then you will have to go for these, BRC IFS. So from the simple is HACCP, and the more complicated is IFS BRC. And then, okay, then we go to a very, this is not the wild, wild west, but it's almost the wild, wild west. The world of standards and certifications and sustainability labels, it's very complicated. You have more than 300 different standards certifications. And there are some that are very known. Fair Trade, for example, is very known. MSC for seafood is very known. You have Rainforest Alliance also is known. Some of them, some big company like Unilever, for example, they have their own program. There are also some sector associations that people went together. In the coconut sector, for example, we had a huge problem because coconut is exploding. We have a huge demand for coconut byproducts, but we lack sustainably produced coconut ingredients. So all the industry went together and they said, okay, we will be partner and just fixing together some objectives. So we have here the Sustainable Coconut Charter. We have the Sustainable Certified Coconut Oil. Then we have the Sustainable Spice Initiative, which is very important. Companies like Ned Spice, Olam, etc. They said, okay, we will agree to have some common targets, and we will invest ourselves so that these targets are understood by the producers, and we will help them to comply with that. We interviewed Verstegen, Sabater, that are part of this. There are known companies importing from Indonesia like Royal Polak or Cinnamon, very important also in the Sustainable Spice Initiative. So these are sectorial sustainability standards. You have the nuts, and also all these sectorial initiatives, they help also certification agencies to define their programs. Like, for example, Sustainable Spice Initiative, they help Rainforest Alliance to define their herbs and spice program. So, what is the most generally requested from Indonesian suppliers? So, for example, it's difficult to, okay, this is just one slide here, but we cannot generalize too much. It depends on every product. So if you work with cafe, if you work with cacao, it's, it has some, not everything fits for everything, but if we have to synthesize, I will say that these are the ones here that are mainly requested from Indonesia. So ISO 9001, it means it's a bit more, it means that you have a system to control quality in place. HACCP, I mentioned that. Good manufacturing practice, okay. This is also, everybody talks about that. It mainly applies to cosmetics, and it will become mandatory in the new cosmetic regulations. But if your ingredients are not aimed at cosmetics, it's mainly less. What is important here is to show that you follow some hygiene and quality control rules, and HACCP can be a base for that. Organic certification, fair trade, Rainforest Alliance. These are the main ones. Rainforest Alliance, it will be useful, for example, with the Deforestation Act. If you are part of Rainforest Alliance, if you are certified, it will be a guarantee that you respect, certain rules. Fair trade, it will guarantee that you respect some social responsibility. So this is very much valued. So just keep in mind these three ones here, organic, fair trade, and Rainforest Alliance. It's a good start for you. Okay, just now I just we don't have too much time, but with a part of these certifications that are preferred by the importers, apart from the concerns about sustainability, if we ask some importers working currently with Indonesia, what are the main advantages that they identify with the region? So first of all, important thing is that it's widely known, Indonesia, as a country, an origin of very high quality ingredients and considered for certain products as the best. So for spices, Indonesia has the best, of course, nutmeg, cassia, pepper. Some peppers are very much valued for different reasons. The climate, the soil, and also the traditions. It's very much valorized. So keep that. It's good. It's a market like that. The importers like that. That you have many small farmers that use traditional methods with the knowledge, traditional knowledge, that guarantee quality and authenticity. This is valorized by the market very much. Diverse product range. Your country produces a large, long list of ingredients that are very much trendy in Europe now. Spices, herbs, cafe, cacao, etc. So you can aim at different industries and sectors, from food to cosmetics, etc. Competitive pricing, so it needs to be seen. Many natural ingredients at competitive costs. So that's important because, still don't forget that we work, it's a business, so price at the end is also very important. Sustainable sourcing. So there's a contradiction here. It's an obstacle and it's also an advantage. But apparently, Indonesia did a lot of efforts in terms of sustainability. You have a lot of initiatives. and it starts to pay off. This includes to promote organic farming, fair trade, responsible harvesting, and so this can be an advantage. And if you invest in sustainability and you push stronger, it makes a difference compared with some competitors like India or like Vietnam, for example, that have a lot of issues with this. Naturally, small farmers practice regenerative agriculture, intercropping. This is part of their tradition, so it is good for preserving biodiversity. So these are the main things why people want to continue or even want more with Indonesia. What are the main issues for spices? Well, if we ask what were the problems for spices mainly. So of course, quality control is an issue. So since if you look in the RASSF portal, this is the portal of the European Food Safety Authority. There were 42 notifications since 2021 for products imported from Indonesia. So this is important. So it means that 42 times countries reported problems, infractions in level of aflatoxin, level of pesticide, contaminant, salmonella, etc. So this is important because when there are notifications in the system, the number of controls increase, and for example, for nutmeg, the controls are 20%. 20% of the nutmeg imported in Europe are controlled by the border authorities. So I will go fast here, but the issues: quality control, many small farmers, for example, or level of contaminants too high, microbiological hazards, etc. So this was a problem. Traceability. What we hear is that many small farmers and cooperatives, the supply chain is very complex in Indonesia. Very often the people don't keep track of their sales and their price, so it's very difficult to ensure traceability. So this is a problem that we hear also. Transparent supply chain is a difficult thing. Export restriction. Also, we heard that there are some policies that impact that makes things more difficult for the importers, but it's fair game. Logistic and shipping delays also, because also the geography, the many islands in Indonesia, transportation costs and delays can be long. So this is a thing we hear. For coconut sugar, we hear that the methods for drying, for example, the sugar can pose a problem for mold, moisture, etc. Contamination with debris, other substances. The consistency of the product, which is very important for the importer. The importer always needs consistency in the same product every time. So it's very important. And there were some issues in the past with this. This is something that I heard. Additives. So additives that are prohibited. Compliance with regulations. Okay. So here I listed some quality control tests because now, there are big increase in spice sectors, notably of controls, because there were a lot of adulteration and fraud in many countries. So the importers are very much multiplicate the tests, for example, and there are new technologies also. So it starts with visual inspection, of course, and then all the microbiological analysis. And it's true for every product, but let's say that's our spices, it's very important. And also chemical analysis to test pesticide residue, heavy metals, mycotoxin. You have sensory evaluation, so it means that you have panels of people, that assess color, flavor, aroma, and also spice importers. It's a domain of specialists. The people are very knowledgeable, but you have also some new electronic nose technologies that are used by big importers, etc. So there are different quality control tests that are performed, and it's mainly designed to ensure that it respects the laws, food safety laws in Europe, but also the reputation of the importers. They want the best products because they are specialized in this, and it's their brand that they what are the documents that are generally demanded to new suppliers? This is a question also that is very important, because I ask, okay, if somebody want to work with you, what will you ask them at first without a long relationship? So first things, as general, of course it changed, okay? I cannot, there is no, every company has different requirements for this, for documentations, but you know, if we have to synthesize, it's an important thing. And also it's important for the government, when you recruit some new companies to participate in trade promotion activities, you need to see if these companies are able to provide with this information. So it starts with product specifications. So describing completely the product, the label, the packaging, labeling information. So this is basic. Then the certificate of origin is also very important for tariff and for the tariff, which tariff apply, and to see, this is important. Certificates of analysis, this is absolutely important, and different laboratory tests. So of course it depends on the products. Every product has different tests, but as a general rule, certificate of analysis. Safety data sheet. Well, in general, safety data sheet, it applies mainly for chemicals and substance. So mainly safety data sheet is generally more for cosmetics, but for example, for food or food ingredients, allergens are very important, more and more important. And then a new thing for this sustainability trends, the sustainability self-audit or self-assessment. So companies that are interviewed, for example, Gebana from Switzerland, Verstegen, Sabata, for example, they will first send to the exporters, to the companies, some self-audit or self-assessment tool, so that the company is able by itself to test themselves in terms of sustainability with different criteria, 80 some criteria. It's not that easy. Huh? It takes time and it needs to be done carefully. This is very often the first test. And the most common one is the sustainability assessment tool developed by the Social Accountability International with different criteria. This is, and it's free, that's good. But once you did that, you see what you have to correct. And then you can enter in the audit by SEDEX members, the SMETA, the famous SMETA audit, which is a basic for a lot of different importers. So many importers ask for SMETA audit, SMETA report. So you can start with the self-audit, and then you see what you have to correct. And then when you feel ready, you go with the external audit. Then the proof of certifications for the certifications that are demanded by them. So it changed, right? Every ingredient importer asks for different certifications. I just want to do a short parenthesis about certification. It's very important. There is no way to say, for example, this importer asks for this certification, for natural ingredient importer, I mean, because many of them, if you take, for example, I will take many traders or ingredient importers in Netherlands or Germany, they will request that certification. For example, I will say, Berico. Berico, they are looking for coconut sugar. So this time they will ask for fair trade organic. But another time they will ask for another certification. Why? And it is the same for the volume. They will not tell you which volume they want because it changed. Because these companies, they will work on the request by their clients. So if a client is a manufacturer working in the organic segment, their request will be organic. It depends on their clients, and their clients are secret. They will not tell you their clients. So Kenko, for example, it's a British company that will import a lot of ingredients that they are looking for, ginger, for example. But this time, for the Italian market, they will ask that certification because this is for baby grade food. So it changed. So it's very important to know, to talk openly with the importer and to see what they request. and what is the perspective financially for you. And then commercial and legal documentation of your company. So this is what is requested. So I will go fast on this. I just wanted to see, because I provide, with this report, I will provide a list to my partners of SIPO of a database of importers importing from Indonesia. So what are the portrait of, it's always important for you exporters to know how the market is structured, what are the trade channels in the European countries. So I gave an example here that applies to a lot of products. It's basic, it's simple, but it shows that, for example, between the farmer and the final customers, there are different steps, there are different actors. So the exporter, the importer, the processors, etc. So it's very naive to say, I want my product to be sold in a supermarket, because the supermarket, as you can see here, they don't import themselves. They work with different in-betweens. And the dynamic of this trade channel is basic, is the more the volume, the more direct we will import. And then I explain here, for the spices, for example, you have a lot of specialized large importers, also traders and brokers. Food manufacturers, they are very important, but they will import an ingredient only if they import a lot, etc. You have specialty spice importers also, it's more and more important. So you have some importers like Pacific Spice, for example, from Netherlands. They will work with one origin specifically because they focus on this origin. They become specialists of this origin. And we see more and more of this. So if you have a very special product, very special ingredient, you may find the perfect match in the specialty importer working with your product. So, etc. So some tips to approach buyers. Do your research. I'd say just take the time to find the good match for you. In the good market, the good segment. Before trying to sell to everybody, it doesn't work. It's counterproductive. It doesn't work at all. Before approaching a buyer, you need to know, you need to do your homework. This is the first, with all my experience, what I can tell you is this. You need to do your homework. You need to know who is your best match. And you need to do your homework. Know your market. Then you need to define your value proposition. If you know well your client, you will define more easily your value proposition. Then you have to go to trade fairs, etc. Do some efforts to build relationship with potential customers. Then be patient and flexible. Understand the specifications, the market requirements, etc. etc., etc. So I know that we bypassed our time. So I just listed some companies interviewed for this, but yeah. Okay, so please, I finished. I'm sorry, I just bypassed my time. So I think that we are in the question time now.
Yeah, well, thank you, Charles, for very informative and comprehensive sharing on the market of European end Swiss. In our perspective, that despite all the requirement and regulation that the SME need to fulfill, we also need to see this as very potential market to expand for Indonesian SMEs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we will moving on to the main agenda, main course for the session, which is the Q&A session. So later on, if you have any questions or would like to consult the information shared by Charles, here is the time. To make these sessions becoming more fruitful and alive, this session will be facilitated by our colleague from SIPO, Mr. Sutrisna. So I'd like to hand my mic to Mr. Sutrisna. The floor is yours.
Baik, terima kasih Pak atas waktunya. Charles, thank you so much for your very valuable presentation material. Saya akan berbicara pelan-pelan Bapak Ibu, karena ini momen yang sangat penting. Saya akan berbicara bahasa Indonesia, supaya translatornya bisa mentranslate dengan baik. Jadi saya tidak mau bolak-balik dalam bahasa Inggris. Sorry translator ya, saya akan tetap berbahasa Indonesia. Baik, saya menerima banyak sekali pertanyaan. Jadi Pak Charles, ini sangat menarik ya. Terima kasih banyak. Sebelum saya membahas pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang menarik, saya ingin bertanya kepada Pak Aris dan juga mungkin nanti kepada teman-teman di Kementerian Koperasi yang kemarin sudah jalan sama-sama ke Food Ingredient Europe, ke Swiss, juga ke Belanda gitu ya. Ini supaya Bapak Ibu semua bisa mendengarkan hasil yang lebih konkret dari buyer. Tadi Pak Charles itu memberikan informasi tentang banyak sekali kayaknya pertanyaan informasi mengenai sertifikasi ya. Mungkin bagi Bapak Ibu kayaknya mungkin maunya langsung ke poinnya gitu ya, bagaimana jualan. Tapi sebenarnya yang dijelaskan Pak Charles itulah intinya ya. Nah, sekarang salah satu lagi yang memang menjadi sesuatu yang bukan baru sih, tetapi memang menjadi trendsetter dan kedepannya akan menjadi sesuatu yang kayak semacam gate buat Ibu masuk ke pasar Eropa ya. Saya ingin tanya dulu sama Pak Aris nih. Waktu ke Eropa kemarin Pak Aris, kita kan juga berkunjung ke buyer ya. Dan itu buyer ketika pertama kali kita bilang bahwa dari Indonesia, itu sebenarnya requirement yang paling pertama apa Pak Aris di Eropa? Kalau tadi Pak Charles sudah banyak juga menyinggung ya. Tapi ingin tahu kalau kita dari buyer-nya langsung itu apa yang dikatakan, Pak Aris?
Oke, baik. Terima kasih banyak. Ini saya akan coba share sedikit ya pengalaman saya dengan tim dari Kemenkop waktu kita ketemu dengan buyer. Jadi menarik ini, begitu mereka tahu bahwa kita dari Indonesia, itu mereka langsung semangat gitu, semangat karena Indonesia ini memang sebagai salah satu negara yang bisa mensuplai banyak hal untuk natural ingredient. Ada beberapa tipe buyer yang kita ketemui. Jadi ada kalau yang di Swiss itu buyer-buyernya adalah tidak semuanya memerlukan volume besar. Nah, jadi mereka itu siap dengan membeli dengan volume kecil dulu. Nanti setelah barangnya bagus, shipment pertama, shipment kedua, shipment ketiga, itu nanti akan bertambah. Jadi mereka itu lebih suka long term relationship, lihat dulu barangnya, kemudian nanti akan menambah volumenya. Dan juga tentunya tadi yang disebutkan oleh Pak Charles, itu penting sekali masalah sustainability, karena yang kalau buyer yang di Swiss itu sudah pasti mereka sangat mementingkan masalah yang pertama adalah masalah sustainability, dan uniknya mereka itu melihat seperti ini. Oke, misalkan di tempatnya supplier memerlukan air bersih, clean water, mereka akan turut serta untuk menyediakan clean water untuk masyarakat sekitar. Jadi bentuk dari sustainability practices-nya itu unik. Mereka lihat dulu apa kebutuhan dari teman-teman supplier apa, mereka akan bantu. Nah, hal-hal seperti ini yang kita pelajari sangat dari sumbernya langsung, dan kita sangat bersyukur langsung ketemu dengan bayarnya. Yang kedua, yang dari Spanyol. Yang dari Spanyol ini big buyers, dia mainnya volume tentunya. Tapi bagusnya juga, ini terima kasih banyak kepada Pak Charles ini yang mempertemukan kita dengan buyer dari Spanyol, Sabater. Mereka willing untuk invest knowledge dan juga capital untuk membantu group of farmers untuk bisa mereka memenuhi persyaratan dari sustainability practices. Jadi kalau misalkan mereka ada kesulitan katakanlah misalkan irigasi atau apa, itu nanti mereka akan bantu. Jadi mereka ini typical buyer yang memang bukan hanya buy and sell, tapi mereka juga akan membantu untuk mensupport suppliernya supaya bisa memenuhi persyaratan-persyaratan dari sustainability agriculture practices. Nah, ini yang memang perlu kita lihat dan kita perlu komitmen dari kitanya. Karena buyer yang ini juga mensyaratkan mereka harus bekerja sama minimal 5 tahun. Jadi jangan 2 tahun pindah, 3 tahun pindah, karena mereka juga sudah invest di sini. Nah, dua hal ini yang kita temui dari beberapa buyer yang kita temui di Eropa.
Oke, baik, terima kasih Pak Ari informasinya. Sebelum kita ke Pak Charles nih, Pak Charles jadi bintang tamu. So, translator can speak to Pak Charles bintang tamu ya. Tapi sebelum kita ke bintang tamu, kita ke para ininya ya, ajudannya. Saya mau bertanya dulu ke Bu Agni, kan juga Bu Agni kemarin pergi ke Eropa, Bu Agni. Jadi udah mendengarkan juga ya bahwa buyer itu mintanya lumayan banyak ya Bu requirement-nya. Mengenai sertifikasi, tadi Pak Charles juga bicarakan, mengenai sustainability. Nah, kalau Bu Agni ini yang sehari-hari ngurusin UMKM di Indonesia ya, apa Bu pesan-pesannya untuk UMKM yang ingin naik level jadi eksporter? Silakan Bu Agni.
Baik, terima kasih waktunya Pak Sutrisna. Halo Charles, terima kasih presentasinya hari ini. Oke, baik. Terkait pengembangan UKM, memang requirement dari Eropa, terutama buyer Eropa, memang banyak sertifikasi dan perintilan atau teknis yang mereka minta ya Pak. Namun yang satu yang saya catat dan saya amati dari para buyer ini, seperti tadi mungkin sudah disampaikan Pak Aris, bahwa mereka itu ingin membangun hubungan jangka panjang dengan supplier atau dengan pelaku usaha yang ada di Indonesia. Jadi kalau tadi memang ada pertanyaan dari beberapa pelaku UKM yang ada di chat, bahwa kami punya produk ini dan ini, tapi kemudian kami belum tersertifikasi organik. Tapi ternyata dari buyer Eropa sendiri willing to invest atau bersedia untuk investasi atau untuk mengembangkan UKM ataupun koperasi yang memiliki produk yang mereka memang minta gitu. Jadi memang kembali ke poin yang tadi sudah disampaikan Charles, dari UKM PR-nya itu memang selain sertifikasi mereka harus ada transparansi dan komitmen yang tinggi. Dan itu tidak bisa dalam jangka pendek komitmennya, harus jangka panjang. Jadi nggak bisa yang kita hanya melihat profit jangka pendek sementara yang besar nilainya. Padahal dari buyer Eropa itu dicarinya tidak hanya volume atau kuantitas, tapi juga kualitas. Itu yang saya amati Pak. Dan terima kasih Bapak Ibu UKM yang sudah tadi share di chat room. Sudah kami catat data-datanya supaya nanti kami bisa follow up lebih lanjut. Memang banyak sekali sumber daya alam Indonesia yang potensial bagi permintaan buyer yang ada di Eropa. Mungkin itu sedikit yang bisa saya sampaikan. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Bu Agni atas ke Pak Charles. Saya mungkin langsung bahasa Inggris saja ya, karena ini pertanyaan untuk Pak Charles. Can you hear me, Charles? Can you hear me, Charles? Okay. There are 3 questions. Basically, the questions. Sebentar, saya rubah dulu ya. Okay. The product that are questions by the participant about desiccated coconut, and then also nutmeg and cardamom. So what do you think the demand in the Europe for nutmeg? And also what will be the requirement for those products? Is that any particular request or particular food safety for those 3 particular products, Richard? Sorry, Charles.
In fact, when I crafted the presentation and when I talked about the requirements, I just had specifically in mind nutmeg. So, but of course, depending of every product, yeah, there are some different. If you talk about cafe, for example, or there are always, you need to check what are the different residue level, what are the contaminants and everything. I cannot tell you that. I don't have in mind for every product, but we need to check, you know, for every regarding this. You check first the regulation by the HS code. You enter in the portal of the European Commission, the portal that we call Access to Market, and then you see listed all the different regulations, and then you will see what are the level of contaminants, the pesticide that apply to these products. Every product, like cardamom, for example, there are some social issues also that you know, for in different, I have in mind, for example, in some, I will not talk about Indonesia, but I know that in Vietnam, for example, some regions where they produce cardamom is produced by ethnic minorities. So the people, when they do their due diligence or their assessment, they will check, you know, and it applies to certain ingredients in particular. So you need to, yeah, I don't want to, there's no general rule, you know, for every product is different, and we have to check the context and the danger, the risk. We need to do a risk assessment, for example, in the buyer's perspective. And we see that for certain products, there are levels of risk that are different, that imply different requirements. But, you know, what I did in the presentation, what I talked about in the presentation, it was mainly, it was some general requirements for spices, so that apply very much for nutmeg. I don't know if I answered your questions. I know it's general, but you know, yeah. I just, yes, can I just add something on the volume? Because Aris said very interesting, the things about the volume. It's totally true that, you know, for certain products, for high quality premium products, it's impossible to import by container. So it's obvious that for some products, very high quality, very specific, you will work with pallet. What the importers will do, they will try to consolidate containers with other products. For example, taking care of not contaminating. But for example, it's not unusual that you have coconut sugar with other spices and everything. So this is the way we try to save cost. And so small quantities are totally possible. And yeah.
Ya, thank you Charles. Bapak Ibu, saya rasa Pak Charles memberikan jawaban, memang dia tidak bisa memberikan satu-satu, tapi dia memberikan kunci jawaban yang sangat penting, bahwa untuk bisa mengetahui requirement, tadi Pak Charles di dalam reportnya sudah memberitahu ya, masuk dalam akses market portal EU, nanti itu di produk itu bisa diberitahu. Jadi apa saja yang menjadi requirement. Itu tadi yang saya highlight, dan itu menjadi sekali. Jadi ini bukan dikasih ikannya, tapi dikasih pancingannya oleh Pak Charles. Jadi Bapak Ibu semua bisa akses ke dalam. Itu tadi yang diberikan. Terus lagi mengenai, ada lagi nih Pak Charles pertanyaannya. Dari sekian banyak requirement sertifikasi, contohnya ada organik, ada HACCP, ada juga BRC, terus ada lagi rainforest, terus ada lagi fair trade. Bagi UKM yang baru mau masuk dalam pasar ekspor, banyak sekali sertifikat yang harus disiapkan. Mungkin entry point dari UKM itu kalau ingin melakukan sertifikasi, apa dulu Pak Charles? Ini pertanyaan yang japri masuk ke saya. Apa yang mesti diutamakan dulu supaya dari banyaknya sertifikasi yang diminta itu apa dulu yang paling bisa dilakukan oleh UMKM?
Yes, first of all, you need to know your market. So you need to do your research. So if you have a specific product, you need to learn about the requirements on these products. This is part of this is basic job that you need to do. You have many different sources to learn about your product, and for example, one very known is CBI. CBI is a partner organization of SIPO. They have some product fact sheets For every different spice, they have one on cinnamon, then one on nutmeg. So you see, you can there and fresh fruits and fish. So you can have the first thing that you must do as an exporter, if you want to explore a new market, is to read about this market, read about the requirement, read about the structure, the trade channels, the main actors, and then it gives you a good. Then you will go to the official. The European Commission has very, very good online tools. I just mentioned one. The European Commission has a portal that Sutrisna mentioned also, access to market, so that you enter the HS code, which is the HS code is the code of the customs, for example, for this product, and then it will list the main legal requirements that you have to fulfill. Regarding the certification, as I say, there are a lot of different standards, labels, regulations, certifications. But in terms of food safety, the GFSI family is the most recognized. Everybody works with the GFSI certifications that I talked about in the presentation. The basic is HACCP. So HACCP, this is the basic one. So if you want to export a processed ingredient or a processed food, HACCP is the minimum. HACCP. Okay, I will just explain a bit more. If you want to work with the processors, food processors, manufacturers, packers, etc., HACCP will be the minimum. Very often, not enough. So ISO 22000 and FSSC 22000. These are the most demanded. And of course, if you start on a new market, you cannot pretend to sell in the supermarkets. It's too early for you. So IFS BRC, it's not for you. So I will suggest, if you don't have it, HACCP is the minimum. If you work with processed ingredients, if you are just a grower, if you work with fresh products, global gap is the minimum to export to Europe for fresh products. You want to sell fresh ginger in Europe and you grow fresh ginger, global gap is the minimum. So these are basic things of the market. If you want to export, for example, we visited Bigley Copperman. You have a lot of importers in Netherlands, in particular, importers of Asian food. So they import, they look what can be popular, what can work, what can sell to ethnic segments, and they will want to import this. So the ethnic segment, the ethnic channels, it is the channel that doesn't ask for certification in general, but they ask that you respect the law. You need to respect always the general food law. So it's very complicated. So if you have some pre-cooked noodles, for example, very often you have ingredients inside that are not permitted in Europe. But the importers will help you to substitute maybe this ingredient with something else. So it's a long and complicated process. But to simplify, I will say that you have to start with what I said. Processed ingredient, HACCP or more, fresh, global gap. If you export cafe, cacao, a special spice, the importer, they need your product. So they will accept that you're not certified, but they will check the quality control, the lab test, analysis, all of this. It's a long process. So I just want to and then I stopped, but certification are there to simplify the life of everybody. The importer cannot go in your land, in your factory, to check by himself. So the certifications exist to give insurance. It also shows your care. It shows that you care about the law, that you care about, because you cannot say, I'm not in Europe, I'm in Indonesia, it's not my business. So what Europe asks is not my business, but this is not what the importer wants. The importer wants a partner. He wants that your supplier care for the market and the regulations. So I don't know if I'm clear, but
Thank you so much, Pak Charles. Bapak Ibu, pertanyaannya tadi mudah ya, jawabnya sertifikat apa yang dibutuhkan buat istilahnya UKM mau naik kelas. Tapi PR di ibu-ibunya yang cukup banyak. Berarti Bapak Ibu harus tahu sebenarnya targetnya kemana dan Ibu mengekspornya kemana. Tadi Charles bilang kalau Ibu akan mengekspor produknya itu yang proses ya, yang sudah diproses, itu minimum hasap, itu minimum sekali. Yang kalau Ibu punya hasap itu pintu sudah mulai kelihatan terbuka ya untuk masuk pasar Eropa. Walaupun nanti ada lagi requirement lainnya. Untuk fresh fruit, food tadi itu harus ada global gap. Nah tadi menarik nih, jangan sampai salah ketika Pak Charles menjelaskan ethnic channel itu katanya tidak membutuhkan sertifikasi, tapi general flow-nya harus diikuti karena ada komponen atau elemen yang itu tidak bisa masuk ke negara Eropa, tetapi biasanya buyer tuh bisa baik memberikan substitute-nya apa. Nah, mungkin sedikit saya minta Pak Charles biar teman-teman tuh tahu, kalau saya sama Bu Agni, Pak Aris mungkin tahu ya ethnic channel tuh apa. Tapi mungkin mendingan dengar langsung dari Pak Charles. Itu Pak Charles 1 menit karena ada pertanyaan ini 2 lagi yang mungkin sedang ngantri lama. Apa sih ethnic channel, Pak Charles? Bisa dijelaskan lebih detail?
Yes, ethnic channel is a very well, okay, European Union counts 450 million people, so it's a huge market. It's the first food market in the world, and there are many immigrants in Europe, and these immigrants come from different countries. For example, in France, you had a lot of immigrants from North Africa. In England, you have a lot of add a lot from India, Pakistan. In Netherlands, you had a lot of Indonesian. So these immigrant communities at the origin have also special tastes and special requirements and requests. They want to eat their own food or the food of their parents. Also, European customers are very curious. They like to travel, and they have we call these markets high revenue markets. So they have the money to travel. They want to taste other foods. They like Asian food, for example. They like Middle Eastern food. So they want to find these products. And also television, communication, social media. You know, there are some new trends. The people don't want to eat only the food of their mother. They want to taste other things. And it's a very important driver for many ingredients. Coconut. In my childhood, I'm from Canada. We didn't eat coconut, you know. So, but now I like it very much. It's like this is the way it works. So, what is the ethnic channel? The ethnic channel is the retailers, the distributors, the importers that feed mainly this market of immigrants, of curious non-immigrants. I don't know how to name it. The restaurants, ethnic restaurants. So it's an important market. For example, I will give you another example. It helps to include new products in the market. I used to work a lot with dry fruits, dates. You know, dates. Dates were introduced by Muslim immigrants in France, and now it's eaten by everybody. Tea, coconut was another example, etc. So ethnic channel is often the first gate to enter in a market, and it's the easiest gate because the Indonesian who lives in Amsterdam, he doesn't want that the product be transformed. He wants it exactly like it is in Indonesia. So the certification there is not important. The importer, he wants it exactly like in Jakarta. The only thing is that he has to follow a law, and in this law, this ingredient will not be permitted. So it's very complicated for the ethnic products. They have to check the ingredient list, and they will just, and they are specialists. They know, okay, this ingredient used to give some more taste in China, it's not allowed in Europe. So we know that you can replace it by this, and then they work with their suppliers. But also another thing that I will say, a very special particularity of the European customers. It's and they are different than Americans, Canadians, Asians, and South Americans. In this, the European customers want European brands in general. They don't trust foreign brands. This is an important factor for European, because very often the European, they know that the European brand, the brand needs to follow the law, respect some rules and everything, so they feel more secure, okay? Except in the ethnic channel. The ethnic channels, they want authenticity. So this is a particular channel. And if you want a special halal, if you want halal meat, for example, for different reason, you will go to the ethnic channel. If you want, etc. So this is an ethnic channel, and this is the less difficult in terms of certifications. So this is the first, very often it's the first entry to a market, and this is also often where the product is known for the first time.
Oke, thank you Charles. Sangat berguna informasinya. Saya tidak akan ulang lagi karena Pak Charles sudah menjelaskan. Pak Cesar, Ibu Shirley, dan Pak Denny, tunggu sebentar ya. Mungkin habis ini kita akan bahas. Mungkin ada tambahan dari Pak Aris, apa yang sudah dijelaskan oleh Pak Charles? Pak Aris?
Ya, diterangkan oleh Pak Charles, dan betul sekali. Ini kejadian nyata. Waktu kita visit salah satu diaspora Indonesia di Swiss, Ibu Katarina ini mengimpor ethnic snack dari Indonesia untuk ethnic channels untuk diaspora Indonesia yang ada di Swiss, dan waktu itu beliau lupa untuk mengecek beberapa ingredient. Ada beberapa ingredient yang tidak diperbolehkan masuk ke Switzerland, dan hasilnya adalah beliau kena penalti. Jadi betul sekali apa yang disebutkan oleh Pak Charles. Jadi harus benar-benar apapun itu produk yang akan diekspor ke Eropa harus memenuhi regulasi negara setempat. Meskipun itu tidak memerlukan sertifikat ya mungkin. Nah, tapi untuk beberapa ingredient itu penting sekali untuk dilihat. Kalau enggak nanti bisa babak belur, nantinya kena penalti nantinya. Terima kasih banyak Pak Charles untuk memberikan lagi informasi yang sangat baik sekali untuk ethnic channel. Saya kembalikan silakan.
Terima kasih Pak Aris. Ini Pak Charles nanti presentasinya sudah diminta sama ribuan orang ini, dari 112, 120 yang hadir sudah meminta presentasi. Jadi nanti kirim ke kami, ke SIPO, kami akan share ke teman-teman koperasi untuk share balik ke teman-teman yang hadir semua. Baik, ini ada 3 pertanyaan yang sudah mengantri, Pak Charles. Mereka sudah dengan sabar menunggu, tangannya nggak capek, itu ada terus di dalam Zoom saya. Baik, saya kasih kesempatan pertama untuk Pak Cesar yang sudah angkat tangan. Mohon videonya juga bisa dinyalakan Pak Cesar untuk bisa bertanya kepada Pak Charles, bisa menggunakan bahasa Inggris atau juga bahasa Indonesia. Go ahead Pak Cesar.
Terima kasih Pak Sutrisno Abi.
Bonjour, maaf Ibu ya.
Bonjour Monsieur Charles, ça va? Je suis Eka from Indonesia, from Celebes, Indonesia. I would like to ask 2 important questions. Your presentation is very interesting and very give us a very good insight. The first question is about certification, especially the organic certification. Can we substitute the organic certification with other laboratory tests, like free from pesticide, free from fertilizer or the residues? That's the first questions. The second question, it is very interesting that in your presentation that this quality control, there is a quality control technique that designed to ensure that the spice meet the required quality and safety standards. So where we, the Indonesian farmers, growers, or processors, or the companies could learn about this specific quality control technique. I personally really like to learn about this, so that when we processed products, it could meet the need or requirement that demands by European market. Thank you, Mr. Charles and Mr. Sutrisno Abi. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Charles. You can respond right away.
Merci. Yeah, very interesting question. Just for the laboratory, for the test, the different techniques and everything, it changed. The technologies evaluate, and I must say I'm not an engineer. This is what I collect as information, but there are some certification bodies that are present in Indonesia a lot. There are some also laboratory control union from Netherlands, for example. They are present. They have a big team in Indonesia, so you can control. You can check their website and you can see the different tests that they have. So this is their business actually. So all the official labs providing services to the processors in Indonesia can certainly inform you about these aspects that are very interesting. I admit. And just can you remind me your first question? It was very interesting. Just please, I'm sorry. Please remind me your first question. I want to answer this too. Can you remind me, please?
Yeah.
Can we substitute the certification, the organic certification with just the laboratory test that declare that it's free from pesticide or the residues? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. In Europe, the organic agriculture is framed by a law, the organic law. And this organic law defines some criteria for organic agriculture, for ingredients, etc., 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 etc. So you need to follow this law to be able to call your product organic. And you need to follow this law to put the label, the green leaf on your product. But this law only applies to food product. For example, for cosmetic, we see often organic cosmetic, but there is no law for organic cosmetic. So this is what it brings me to so why and how some cosmetics are called organic. So it refers to something else, the information to consumers. And the CLP regulation, we call it. This is the labeling and so it means that you cannot say something on a product that is not true. So this is the law that applies. So if you say that your product is organic, for example, if I say that my share is organic, the share I'm seated, there is no law defining organic shares. So I will need, because I say it in my label, I will need to prove it in a way that it's organic. So, this is the law that applies. So if you say free from, it's good, it's great, you can totally do that. It's a marketing thing, but you just say free from, but you cannot pretend it's organic. And regarding free from products, it's a huge market in Europe and it's booming market. There are two important trade fairs. There is one, free from, taking place in Amsterdam and Barcelona. It alternates. And the trade fair is everything that is free from salt, free from gluten, free from, I don't know, free from taste, no. But all the rest is, it exists.
Not free from payment, yeah?
Free from payment, yeah. And free from custom, no. Yeah. So organic, everything is framed by the organic regulation. If your product doesn't fall into that category, then the other thing that apply is the information to consumer. If you say something, it needs to be proven. If not, it's misrepresentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, Charles, for the very valuable information. Karena waktu juga sangat mepet. Pak Charles boleh tulis nama pameran yang tadi, Pak Charles, di dalam chat box yang free from trade fair. so everyone can understand.
Yeah.
Terima kasih Ibu Cesar atas
Yeah.
pertanyaan yang sangat menarik. Saya tidak perlu
Yeah.
mengkonklud
It's
ya,
very
karena udah
easy.
jelas ya, nggak boleh
It's,
klaim organik, tapi
it's
boleh
free
bilang
from.
free from bla 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 bla. Oke, thank you. Lanjut kepada Ibu Shirley. Monggo Bu Shirley, pertanyaannya apa yang ingin
Terima
ditanyakan?
kasih, Krishna. Hi Charles, I'm Shirley. I'm from Surabaya. I produce coconut aminos and coconut sweet sauce that is already certified organic. I just came from Biovac last month. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, I heard that SIPO is an organization that gives mentoring to small medium enterprises. So my question is how to become part of SIPO program.
Okay.
It's not for me this question. This question is for my colleagues.
Yeah,
Krishna and Aris.
I suppose I will address it to Pak Aris ya. Tadi pertanyaannya Ibu Shirley tahu program SIPO bisa memfasilitasi kemungkinan perusahaannya. Monggo Pak Aris untuk bisa dijelaskan.
Terima kasih banyak Ibu Shirley. Jadi SIPO ini memang sudah ada di Indonesia sejak dari tahun 2001, jadi sudah 22 tahun ya di Indonesia. Dan per 2017 bulan April kami bekerjasama dengan Business Support Organization. Nah, yang mana salah satunya adalah untuk natural ingredient sector adalah dengan Kemenhop. Nah, jadi kalau Ibu ingin mendapatkan binaan dari Kemenhop yang disupport oleh SIPO, Ibu bisa langsung mendaftar ke Ibu Agni. Nanti mungkin Ibu Agni bisa memberikan contact person-nya di chat box. Jadi Ibu nanti bisa mendaftar, dan kebetulan juga Ibu saat ini kami sedang mau melakukan company assessment bersama tim dari Kemenhop minggu depan. Jadi kalau misalkan Ibu sudah masuk pendaftaran, mungkin nanti kalau misalkan ada waktunya kita bisa visit juga perusahaan Ibu di Surabaya, karena kami juga akan ke East Java nantinya. Jadi silakan berkomunikasi dengan Ibu Agni, karena memang saat ini SIPO semuanya kita channelingnya adalah lewat Business Support Organization, Bu. Begitu ya Bu Shirley ya. Terima kasih banyak untuk pertanyaannya. Baik, saya kembalikan kepada Sutrisna.
Terima kasih Pak Aris.
Terima kasih Pak Aris. Maaf bukan menolak ya Bu, tetapi kami terlahir sekarang harus memberikan servisnya kepada Kementerian Koperasi dan juga namanya BSO. Jadi tidak ke perusahaan. Tapi jangan khawatir Bu, karena Ibu kalau dengan Kemenhop berarti juga sama-sama dengan kami, gitu ya Bu ya. Oke, baik. Sebelum saya masuk ke pertanyaan di dalam chat, ini banyak juga Pak Charles pertanyaannya di dalam chat, ada yang bahasa Inggris dan bahasa Indonesia. Nanti saya pandu untuk mana yang terlebih dahulu pertanyaannya. Sebelum ke sana, kita mau tahu dari Pak Denny Tristan dari Kaltim. Tadi sudah angkat tangan. Monggo Pak Denny mengajukan apa yang ingin ditanya. Silakan Pak Denny.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Sutrisna Abi. Good morning. Through midday, Mr. Charles. We are from East Borneo. Actually, we are from the village. Actually, we are the beginner. Beginner at the factory of the ginger. Actually, so as a beginner, we want to know how to, actually, we have three questions. The first one, actually, we want to know how to, process from beginner to try to export to European Union, something like that, or like the process. We mean the process, how start from beginner, then through to the export to the other countries like Europe, something like that. That the first time. And then the second one is the how the manage the payment of the if we export our product from here, from this East Borneo, the payment something like cash or I mean like tempo, like a tempo or something like that. like a continuous stand, or like a tempo, something like that, the payment or time tempo, something like that. So yeah, the third one, the last one, our question is the may we get your email address? The last one, email address, so we can share, or we will ask about anything later on about the export to the another country, because we try to export. We start to export now. Yeah, maybe from us, something like that. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Ini kayaknya ada 3 pertanyaan. Mudah-mudahan Pak Charles bisa menjawab. Waktu kita tinggal 10 sampai 15 menit. Pak Charles, we still have only 10 to 15 minutes. There are still more questions to come. Silakan dijawab, Pak Charles.
So is it me now?
Yeah, it's you now.
Okay. Yes. Okay. This is a large, wide question that you're asking me. How could I start? In my work, I see a lot of companies, producers that want to export their products, but it's good, it's great, but you have to say to yourself that export is like, it's not easy. It's not easier than sell on national market and local market. This is the most difficult thing. This is a step, you become an exporter with different, depends on your experience. I don't know what is your level of experience, but yeah, you need to be, yes, you need to gain experience. But sometimes, for example, before looking to export your products, it depends. Can you consolidate your market, your local, regional market? Can you try to develop new markets in Indonesia? And then you gain experience, you gain also volume, you get knowledge also. So this is something, a difficult questions, and the ability to export and the readiness to export, this is something that we need to assess, and there are some many different aspects. So the knowledge, the experience, the product specification, adequation between the products and the target market, the financial capacity, to invest and to support the costs, to increase the capacity, the production. So there are many different things. It's not easy. So I don't know how I could say. I'm sure that the Ministry of Cooperative or Ministry of Trade in Indonesia have trainings, have webinars, to help you to learn about the process and to perfect your knowledge and your experience. And this is a good way to start. You don't become an exporter from a day to another. It's something complicated. And very often you don't make more money exporting, you make less. This is the way it is. And I told you about these certification issues, it involves some costs, and to be certified, you need some leverage to be able to finance this. Even to get the HACCP certification, sometimes you need to organize your production facilities. So this is not something easy. So I don't know your case, but I can tell you that it's, there is a world. The foreign markets are not the Graal, It's step by step that we get there. So depending where you are on this road, yeah. So this is what I will.
Terima kasih Pak Denny, Pak Charles. Ini saya sekarang ada pertanyaan ini yang dari. Pertanyaannya adalah ini buat teman-teman Kemenkop nih, mungkin Bu Agni, tentang program. Jadi gini pertanyaannya, kira-kira dari manakah para UKM ini bisa mendapatkan informasi tentang requirement dan juga spesifik regulasi kepada negara mana yang mau dituju. apakah ada aplikasi atau website yang bisa diakses. Kalau tadi Pak Charles kan memberikan informasi bisa langsung melihat ke EU portal ya tadi untuk akses market EU. Tapi kalau secara nasional, apakah mengetahui portal tersendiri yang bisa diakses? Bu Agni?
Baik, Pak. Kebetulan memang dari Kementerian Koperasi saat ini sedang mengembangkan platform informasi dan informasi terkait data UKM ekspor. Namanya portalnya adalah Semesta. Nah, itu kebetulan sudah di-share oleh tim saya di chat. Nanti bisa diakses di sana, ada berbagai macam informasi dan kegiatan Kementerian Koperasi yang bisa diikuti oleh para UKM. Di sana ada banyak hal ya Pak, selain informasi pasar, kegiatan program kementerian, pameran, sertifikasi, dan berbagai fasilitasi Kementerian Koperasi lainnya. Monggo silakan Bapak Ibu bisa akses di sana. Kami juga sedang jalin atau proses koordinasi dengan LNSW. Jadi nanti juga ada informasi terkait kargo terjadwal atau konsolidasi kargo yang mungkin nanti bisa dimanfaatkan oleh Bapak Ibu UKM sekalian. Demikian, terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih Bu Agni. Ini ada pertanyaan lagi Pak Charles. Walaupun tadi sudah dijelaskan ya sama Pak Charles bahwa untuk proses spices itu minimumnya asap. Pertanyaannya Pak Charles, apabila saya, ini dari Ibu Tuti dari Sari Buwana Sajaya, apabila perusahaan Ibu Tuti sudah mempunyai sertifikat HACCP dan juga halal untuk ground spices, untuk dry whole spices, sertifikat apa lagi yang dibutuhkan selain itu Pak Charles untuk bisa masuk pasar Eropa?
Okay, did I understand that you have already HACCP? Okay, okay, it all depends. What I listed there, you know, the triangle, but it was not a triangle, but the basic is HACCP, then ISO FSSC 22000, IFS BRC. It's a kind of triangle. The deeper you want to go in the value chain and the retail, you know, the closer to the retail, the more you need to be certified. But it's not universal law. It depends on your buyer. So every buyer will have a different requirements. You know, if you have a commodity, or no, not a commodity, but if you have a product with a lot of people, with a lot of competition,
recording stopped.
That is easy to find. The people will ask probably more certification, but
recording
if you have a very rare,
recording stopped. Recording in progress.
If you have a very rare product or very demanded product, sometimes the buyer will need to be less demanding. So it's like not less demanding, but less demanding in terms of certification. So it's like there is no general rule. It depends on your client. What I just said, I just tried to give you a portrait, you know, but there are hundreds of thousands of food operators in Europe. So, you know, you can always find importers for which HACCP will be sufficient. But as I said, HACCP, this is the importer level, general importer level. Then the food processor, packers, etc. This is FSSC 22000 in general. And then the closer to retail, it's IFS BRC. So this is the way it works, and as a general rule. But as I said, there are exceptions. Depends.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Charles. Sangat membantu. Jadi sudah di wrap up sama Pak Charles ya. Sekali lagi tadi mengenai sertifikasi. Oke, next questions ini kayaknya tapi walaupun ditulis namanya Pak Charles, tapi rasanya ini yang saya mau address nggak ke Pak Charles ini karena memang sangat relevan dengan pembiayaan atau financing yang ada di Indonesia. Tapi mungkin juga nanti dengan buyer financing, mungkin Pak Charles atau Pak Aris juga bisa menambahkan. Tetapi mungkin kita berbicara yang local financing dulu ya di Indonesia nih mungkin Pak Bi. Apabila dia bilang pakai LC kan tuh 30 hari ya, jadi working capital-nya akan stuck gitu ya untuk membiayai produk yang 30 hari baru dibayar, itu pun 30 hari paling cepat. Mungkin apakah ada, karena saya dengar waktu itu Bu Fiksi di kemudian dari juga untuk ekspor financing ada ya dengan lembaga keuangan di Indonesia ya, koperasi mungkin juga punya malah tuh. Nah, silakan Bu Agni bisa berbagi nggak nih apabila produknya bagus, buyer juga sudah siap ekspor, tapi modal kerjanya atas nih. Gimana Bu Agni?
Baik Pak Trisna, memang kalau skema pembiayaan saat ini yang tersedia diarahkan untuk unit usaha yang badan usaha atau badan hukumnya berbentuk koperasi, Pak. Saat ini memang instrumen hukum yang berlaku bagi koperasi saja, tapi memang sudah ada wacana tahun depan kemungkinan sedang dalam proses pembicaraan dan pembentukan instrumen hukumnya bahwa kalau pembiayaan ekspor juga bisa dilakukan oleh salah satu BLU yang ada di Kementerian Koperasi, namanya LPDB. Mungkin Bapak Ibu sudah pernah dengar, yaitu lembaga pembiayaan dana bergulir. Jadi melalui unit usaha tersebut nanti pelaku usaha baik koperasi maupun UKM bisa mengakses bantuan akses pembiayaan. Tapi kalau saat ini sampai sementara ini baru koperasi saja Pak, memang yang diperuntukkan fasilitasinya. Seperti itu Pak.
Oke, baik, terima kasih. Jadi Ibu bisa coba mengakses juga tuh yang dibilang oleh Bu Agni LPDB ya. Mungkin salah satu alternatif. Tapi saya yakin juga ada salah satu alternatif lain lagi yang ada perbankan yang memang itu nasional perbankan atau kayak BUMN yang memang bisa membantu ekspor impor. Mungkin Pak Aris bisa sedikit memberikan informasi mengenai export financing. Pak Aris sedikit bisa kemana?
Oke, baik. Terima kasih. Ini untuk perkara LC ya. Memang saya dulu banyak sekali menggunakan LC waktu saya kerja di private sector. Jadi kalau Bapak Ibu punya LC, pastikan bahwa LC-nya at site, usance LC at site, dan pada saat penulisan di kontrak dengan buyer, itu dipastikan yang ada di LC sama dengan yang ada di kontrak. Karena apa? Karena takutnya nanti ada diskrepensi. Nah, keunggulannya LC, ini LC-nya bisa didiskontokan. Didiskontokan itu artinya, itu bahasa bank ya, didiskontokan, tapi kita bisa jual gitu ke banknya. Nah, dengan syarat Bapak dan Ibu harus punya plafon kredit di bank. Katakanlah Bapak Ibu punya plafon kredit 2 miliar gitu ya, misalkan. Value dari LC-nya katakanlah 200 juta. Nah, jadi Bapak bisa jual dulu nih LC-nya ke bank dengan ada interest rate tertentu. Tapi biasanya kan nggak terlalu tinggi interest rate-nya. Jadi Bapak Ibu bisa menggunakan uang itu untuk membiayai produksi dan pembelian raw material. Nah, itu salah satu yang kami kerjakan pada saat saya masih di private sector dan itu sangat membantu. Jadi kalau misalkan ada tawaran dari bank kan untuk ada plafon kredit sebaiknya diambil kalau memang banyak menggunakan LC gitu nantinya. Demikian Pak Trisna.
Baik, terima kasih. Pak Charles, mungkin dari buyer perspektif nih, bagaimana apabila pakai LC saja 30 hari berat, mungkin bisa kasih ada pengalaman atau ada informasi dari buyer bagaimana buyer bisa melakukan financing atau bayar down payment seperti itu. Apakah Pak Charles punya pemikiran atau ide? Silakan Pak Charles, 1 menit. Belum kita ke pertanyaan lain.
Well, it's very complicated. It depends very much of the cases. It depends very much of the volume, the quantities, the product. It depends of the level of relationship you have. If it's a one-time, order. Many importers are aware that for small producers, small cooperatives, and farmers, the ability to finance the sales is very low. So they know that they need to pay. They know that it's not easy to access finance. But very often, of course, the importer don't like to pay in advance without seeing the merchandise, the products, of course. But it's all, it depends of a lot of things. It depends of the product. It depends of the volume. It depends of the level of relationship. Yeah, this is what I can say. Because there are too many different cases.
Ya, jadi sudah benar ya kita addressnya memang lebih banyak di lokal untuk masalah pembiayaan.
Depending of the importer, depending of its policy, it change. It's different.
Yeah. Oke, saya rasa Bu Agni sama Pak Aris, apakah masih ada hal yang ingin ditambah terhadap pertanyaan sebelum kita tutup? Saya rasa cukup ya. Oke. Saya cuma ingin sedikit ada recap saja ini dari hasil diskusi dengan Pak Charles. Nomor satu yang paling penting adalah materi sudah saya akan minta Pak Charles untuk mengirimkan materi untuk dikirim ke Bapak Ibu. Nah, sekarang ini yang menjadi inti summary menurut saya adalah bagi Bapak Ibu yang ingin naik kelas atau ingin menjadi pelaku ekspor gitu ya di Indonesia untuk menyumbangkan devisa. Memang Pak Charles bilang tadi tidak gampang untuk menembus pasar global dibanding dengan pasar lokal. Itu memang betul sekali. Nah, apa tahap-tahapan yang tadi Pak Charles utarakan? Nomor satu adalah Bapak Ibu harus tahu dulu pasar atau buyer yang dituju. Jadi biasanya ini jangan menyerahkan ketika datang ke kementerian gitu ya untuk dapat fasilitasi. Nanya bayarnya kemana Ibu, Bapak? Nah, ini yang mungkin para fasilitator juga bingung karena fasilitator kan nggak tahu produknya ya. Jadi Bapak Ibu harus tahu dulu pasar atau buyer mana yang ingin dituju. Tadi kalau Pak Charles itu ngasih tahu apakah mau ke wholesaler kayak contoh tadi untuk ke proses food gitu ya, atau memang mau ke retailer. Jadi itu salah satu juga harus diketahui pasar mana yang dituju dan negara mana karena setiap negara mempunyai requirement yang berbeda. Yang nomor dua, setelah tahu pasar yang dituju dan berbarengan tentunya pasti produk knowledge-nya diperdalam Bapak Ibu. Jadi produk knowledge diperdalam itu dari mulai HS code-nya apa, sampai dengan biasanya aplikasinya untuk apa, itu Bapak Ibu harus tahu dengan baik dan benar gitu ya, produk knowledge. Jadi setelah tahu produk knowledge, tahu pasar yang ditujunya gitu ya, dibayangkan atau paling tidak buyer yang ditujunya mana, Bapak Ibu harus banyak melakukan research. Nah, research ini tidak bisa hanya diberikan kepada para yang memfasilitasi, contohnya kayak kementerian. Kayak sekarang kan Pak Charles hanya memberikan informasi secara generik ya. Tetapi kalau udah masuk ke produknya, kami di sini tidak bisa memberikan penjelasan lebih detail lagi. Kayak tadi ditanya kardamon seperti apa. Tapi Pak Charles dan ini melalui Kementerian Koperasi sudah ngasih tahu kalau kamu ingin masuk pasar, itu lihat ke website mana dan lihat akses market atau portal mana sebagai requirement-nya. Jadi harus memang banyak melakukan riset sendiri untuk bisa mengetahui apa itu regulatory requirement, apa itu buyer requirement. Jadi ini merupakan PR Bapak Ibu kalau ingin naik kelas. Selanjutnya untuk sertifikasi yang tadi dikenalkan oleh Pak Charles begitu banyaknya gitu ya. Jadi Bapak Ibu kalau sudah tahu pasar, sudah tahu produknya, dan sudah melakukan research, itu paling tidak punya gambaran. Kira-kira sertifikat apa yang saya harus dapat? Kayak tadi dari Ibu Tuti bilang saya sudah punya HACCP, karena dia tahu bahwa untuk masuk ke proses food tadi minimumnya ada HACCP. Tapi mau naik levelnya kemana, itu nanti bisa cari lebih lanjut. Tapi paling tidak sudah tahu apa yang menjadi entry point untuk bisa masuk global market. Kayak untuk makanan fresh itu sudah harus ada global care. Kalau mau masuk retailer tadi harus sudah ada PRC, harus sudah ada rainforest alliance, harus sudah ada fair trade. Nah, itu yang harus dipenuhi. Nah, jadi itulah yang diberikan oleh Pak Charles. Mungkin lebih banyak lagi informasi yang di dalam, yang saya tidak bisa cakup sebagai summary, karena memang informasinya semuanya kalau bisa saya bilang berguna semua. Jadi terima kasih banyak Pak Charles atas presentasinya yang begitu berguna. Dan ini saya kasih tahu juga ya, Pak Charles di sana sudah jam 12 malam, karena dia ada di Amerika Latin saat ini, tapi dengan beda 12 jam matanya masih segar dan masih bersemangat untuk bisa memberikan informasi ke kita. We really appreciate you, Charles. Thank you so much. Jadi itulah acara kita pada hari ini sudah kita selesaikan dan saya akan berikan kembali kepada Bapak MC kita. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Pak Tristan, for your moderation and for wrapping up the session for the Q&A session in the end of the agenda. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our agenda today, and it's been very productive and fruitful discussion. And we're also hoping that the seminar is successfully disseminate the information of market of European entities to all the participants. Once again, thank you. Or the Ministry of Cooperatives and SMEs Republic of Indonesia, we would like to say thank you to Pak Aris, Pak Sutrisna, Charles, thank you for your present and your contribution to the seminar. Also, thanks to all the participants. So, as the final agenda, I would like to request all participants to turn on your camera. We would like to have a photo session to close the agenda today.
Baik, saya akan coba ambil fotonya karena kali-kali ya, bentar ya. Ibu Cesar masih tidak bisa share fotonya juga. Kalau nggak bisa nggak apa-apa nih, tinggal 96 sih berarti sekitar 3 kali shot ya, sebentar ya. Coba ambil satu persatu.
Ya.
Oke, ini page pertama, sebentar ya, saya ambil satu. Sebentar dulu, saya kirim dulu ke Bu Agni. Apa namanya, sebagai bukti kita sudah Bu Agni pertama. Oke, sebentar ya, saya balik lagi ke page kedua. Oke, saya ambil lagi. Gua masih ada ini nih, cuma gambar perusahaannya saja nih. Oke, new, saya foto lagi. Baik, sekali lagi. Pak Charles juga minta ini karena ingin kenal dengan teman-teman, dengan Bapak Ibu semua. Sekali lagi, sebentar ya. Ini page ketiga, ternyata ada 4 page. Sayang banyak yang nggak nyala ini fotonya. Tapi kalau ketemu tulisannya Pak Charles nggak kenal deh ini. Oke, one more ya Bapak Ibu. Saya kasih ke Pak MC lagi. Sekali lagi. Oke, one last. New. Oke Pak, selesai Pak MC. Terima kasih banyak.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Again,
thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you very
Charles.
much. Thank you.
Charles.
Thank you.
Everyone. Take care.
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you
It was a
all.
pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Recording stopped.